Just follow the money.
All right, we're getting started. Give me 1 second. All right.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
All right, we got to get to it. We got to get to it. There's so much show to. There's too much show to do. I got lots of stuff to do. Like, subscribe, welcome to the show. Oh, my camera's not. That's better. There we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Oh my hilarious. Bill Maher's a tanky. No, he's got weed poisoning. We'll talk about it later. No doubt. Hold on. Let's turn off studio mode. There we go. Now we're back. Aw. Thanks for gifting the memberships and that kind of stuff. Holy smokes. Welcome. It's Monday morning, isn't it? Yes, it is. And tomorrow, a little housekeeping. Tomorrow afternoon, there'll be no show because I have the jam. I will be performing tomorrow night at the Whiskey. We are doing a celebration of American music just to reclaim words like freedom and patriotism from the people who don't deserve it and enjoy ourselves some American rock and roll. I'm singing a pretty fun spattering of tunes. And yes, reminding you to hit that like this person just, look at that. Thanks, Echo Bailey. That's so sweet. Doing that right out of there. Is that a It's a Wonderful Life joke reference? Yeah? Your name on there? Or is that just, a variation of your name? It could be. It's hard to say. Yes. Okay. So lots of stuff to cover today, not the least of which is, let's see, I'm still getting used to my new kind of setup. There you are. Hey, that's good. And I'm gonna have to make a second page of it. I think so. Yep, that's what's gonna have to happen. That's gonna work out. I'm just screw it. I'll just do it right now. Why is it right now? Do I duplicate it? Yes, I do. And then I'll do. So I'll just call this one. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just call this one chat and just have you guys going all the time on that one. I like it. Oh, whoops. It is? I don't understand what's going on. All right. Let's see. Okay. I'll move this guy up there. Da, 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 da. Put it right there. Where'd it go? That way. Whoops. Close. I'm fixing something real quick just because it's the morning show. Relax, talk amongst yourselves. This one should go up. Articles should be this one, and then we turn off this guy, and that should be that. I mean, should I even have to? That's hard to say. I don't know. Anyways, I'll work on that later. The important thing is lots of news to cover. What'd you say about Bill Maher? Somebody referenced, they said, is Bill Maher is a tanky question mark? And I don't think so. I think he's interestingly enough, I think he's a low information voter on a couple of areas that he, considering the job he has, should be well aware of the details on. That happens a bunch. I don't get it. Yes, and hashtag rip Portland. It's so sad. We need to have Tara back on, giving us kind of like a Portland update, or what's left of it, the smolder. Lots of smolder to talk about today, not the least of which is, and I'm trying not to enjoy this too much, but move this over here so you can see it a little better. There we go. This business. Yeah. Russian ruble plunges past 100 against the dollar for the first time since March 2022. Now, if you'll recall, shortly after the war started and the sanctions were announced and all that kind of stuff, everybody was like, Jesus, I'm getting out of here. And then a bunch of people realized, George Soros style, and I'm not kidding about that because he made his billions, I think, shorting the British pound, or, anyways. Basically kneecapping a currency like an asshole. So always remember that about George Soros, I suppose, is that, you know how they talk about how if unemployment goes down 2%, you can track the number of suicides and stuff. Same thing happens when you artificially devalue a country's currency. Yeah. I mean, if it happens, it happens. That's life. But if you do it on purpose, if you manipulate the market so that you create a situation artificially where it collapses, you ruin people's lives and that kind of stuff. You might go, well, we just made money on the money. It's I'm not going to get into a corporations or people, my friend, business situation. But if you're in a country and you have a specific currency that you need to get some to get things and vice versa, because nobody wants to walk around with everything they need on them at all times, especially food. So money does have a function. It's sort of like an optional coupon that works anywhere. So if you do something like that, you're a dick. Soros is a dick for that. Now, what he's tried to do afterwards is sort of like Bill Gates ripping off Apple for years. It's almost like he's trying to, rebuild his rep and his humanity. We'll see if it works. You guys can decide. That said, let me turn this off real quick. The Russian ruble plunges past 100 against the dollar for the first time since March 2022. It's at 100.77, I think, this morning. It's lowest since March 23rd, weeks after Moscow unleashed the Volga. The ruble has shed around 30% of its value against the dollar since the beginning of the year, as the country imports more and exports less. Data from the Moscow exchange showed the ruble trading at 101. Ooh, that sucks. That's even worse than I saw it this morning. To the dollar at 11:33 a.m., while against the euro, it tumbled to nearly 17-month low of 110. Ruble can sink further to $115 to $120, warned in a note published by financial firms on Monday for the decline in the ruble to end. Antov said we'd need to wait for a reduction in imports or decisive steps by the monetary authorities. Or they could just pack their shit and get the fuck out of Ukraine, and it would level their currency in a matter of weeks. because the hopefuls would jump in and invest in it because they figure, okay, well, shit's going to normalize. So if it's half what I think its value should be, then I can buy a bunch of it as soon as they evacuate from Ukraine, and I'll just sit on it until they get their act together and then sell it. I mean, it would make Russia leaving Ukraine right now, packing their shit and fucking off, would print billionaires. Just saying. In the next couple of years. It would print lots of millionaires as well. Just saying. Because people would just jump in and buy the currency. And I mean, they're not going to go full QAnon, support for the Iraqi dinar, but we're fairly close. That said, hi, chat room. That news will disappoint the trolls waiting for pay from rubles and Trump tokens. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's here's the thing. It's unwelcome. When your currency is unwelcome, this is old school financial issues. And I gotta say, the languaging that the economic world uses, I find hilarious. We have talked about this, and you guys know it drives me fucking crazy. I don't understand why they want to pretend that COVID never happened or some shit. It's just weird. They just want to act like everything's, all things being equal. All things aren't equal, you dumb motherfucker. $20 trillion was wiped away from the U.S. economy alone, much less the fucking world. We just went through, there's even a spike of COVID in cases around. There's still people slow rolling back into the economy because they have immune issues and all kinds of other shit that they're not starting businesses they would start. They're not restarting businesses they used to have. They're not traveling and shit like that. Economically speaking, there's a lot of fucking blowback to that thing that we're still feeling. And they're like, I don't know, what happened to that whole COVID thing? You guys remember what that was all about? I don't remember. You remember that? Good fucking Lord. I'll give you an example. You want to see a prime example? Yeah, I know. Nobody cares about this like I do. Nobody. I know. I understand. I get it. It's just, I'm just a dickhead. I get it. This is CNN business. China's Country Garden suspends trading of onshore bonds amid talk of debt restructuring. That's like saying Bambi's parents discuss putting a hold on rutting amid giant forest fire. All right. Country Garden, one of China's top property developers, suspended trading in 11 of its onshore bonds on Monday. Yeah. Billions of dollars. Just stop. Adding to the speculation, the company has been maybe preparing to restructure its debt. Listen to this fucking language. This is craziness. Thanks I appreciate you liking my my Bambi analogy. I'm very proud of it. I just thought it up, Kath. We need a 180. Yes, Marianne Williamson, we need to turn our economy around and do what China's doing. Oh, I see. So the goal is utter collapse. The fuck? As it struggles to raise enough cash in time to avoid default. What? Stop it. Stop. Quit it. Stop talking about like this is normal. And that dude looks like he's pooping during the segment. Look at him. This is one of those guys who, all right, your job is make sure you don't cause a run on the banks or people to just absolutely toss every Chinese stock out the fucking window. Just make sure you don't, by a slip of the tongue, make Alibaba stock drop in half. Because we have a bunch of it, and we want to have time to get out. That's everybody I see talking about this on all the business networks. And this is not, I don't know why. This is, you know what? I blame Trump for us all knowing way too many legal terms. And I blame these assholes, the China doves or the China fluffers, I guess. China fluffers. That's what I'm going to call them. The China fluffers who this whole look, as somebody who loves the people and the culture of China, I have a minor amount of guilt to some degree about how China positive I was for years. I still stand by what I say about the people and the culture, but I years ago, I mean, it's been at least 12 years, maybe 15 now. Years ago, I had like a lot of people, I heard China's going to eat our lunch shit. And I was like, oh, well, my goodness, those are shiny buildings. I will give them that. And you don't want to believe that about somebody. Hold on one second, I'm fixing something. You don't want to believe that about a country. You don't want to go there, right? Why should you have to? Especially as bad as it is. Like you can assume that people are, maybe there's a little bit of puffery going on and they're inflating the numbers a little bit, but basically the China's an upstart developing country and it needs all the help it can get. It's got millions of people to feed and da-da-da. So if they're playing ducks and drakes with the numbers a little bit, you can forget, but it can't be that bad. It's that bad. It's fucking every terrible thing they talk about, double it or multiply it by 10. Every time you hear a number coming out of there that's bad, double it or multiply it by 10. And every positive thing, cut it in half. Minimum. There is no fucking way they have an $18 trillion economy right now. It's an absurdity. Especially with this stuff going on. This is bigger than Lehman Brothers by itself. This company's holdings. Shares in Country Garden plummeted 16% on Monday to a new record low, leading the losses among the Hang Seng Index constituents as investors pondered whether as they changed their diaper while sitting on their Peloton. As investors pondered whether the property giant's woes could further weigh on an already sluggish recovery in the world's second largest economy. It's not okay. If it's the world's second largest economy, it's by that much. It's almost the size of Japan's. Why the fuck do you think the US is as involved in Japan as we are right now versus anybody else? Because we know it. Because everyone in the halls of power right now is like, get the fuck out. Like, and the irony that, Japan is our ally all these years later, and China has basically like turned on us for saving them from the Japanese. Like, oy. Anyways, on Saturday, Country Garden announced it would suspend trading in 11 of its domestic bonds from Monday as it was planning to hold bondholders meeting on the arrangement of debt repayment. It said it in an exchange filing without elaborating. What the hell? They didn't have a spokesperson come out and go, all right, it's cool. Everybody relax. This is the kind of thing that happens. We got over leveraged. I never even saw these assholes before. I don't know what's going. We've got it. We're smart guys. These assholes fucked with us a little bit, so we're gonna mix things up, and you don't worry about it. You're gonna get paid. We got this covered. We're just gonna stop for a second. We want to pause because we don't want anybody freaking out, undermining our plan to make sure you get your money. Like they didn't even have that guy. They just kind of walked in and like threw a paper on the desk. Snuck out without anybody knowing. Good Lord. Do they have any idea? And hi, chat room. Love you guys. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, comment below, I think is what I'm supposed to be saying, according to the machines that run this joint. Also, since I'm not having a show later on, I'll be doing a t-shirt giveaway amongst our Twitchers later, and a poll. I'm going to have a poll to try and keep building on the things that I've worked on. Now, there's a try to stack those wins. Mm. This is, God, fucking hell. So look at this business. Troubled Giant, which is the name of my first children's book. It's about a giant that can't find an outhouse and and smokes. Country Garden is the latest major Chinese developer. Latest major Chinese developer. These aren't sub companies. All right. Yes, a poll internally to ask you guys questions about stuff to add on to the show. You're going to have input. Not too much because some of you are crazy. I understand that. You know who you are, and I love you, but you're nuts. Let's see. As the property industry grapples with a historic downturn. Okay, it's not a historic downturn, you stupid motherfuckers. It never existed. It was always what the Chinese will call feng pi, which is fart air, butt wind, or wind from butt. Pigo is your ass, and feng is wind. Hence feng shui, wind and water. Never mind. Anyways, feng pi is butt wind. And they used to say all that. It was really fascinating. There was a period where the Chinese economic minister referred to the U.S. economy as feng pi. Yeah, that they used to call our economy feng pi, and it turns out that was just a sort of a pump and dump scheme tactic. Yeah. Usually spell that feng with a E when you anglicize it. People in the chat room who are writing it down, yeah, but it'd be F-E-N-G-P-I. Feng pi. So, fart karma, right. In 2021, Evergrande Group collapsed after it failed to repay billions of dollars of debt, triggering a wave of defaults across the industry. Home sales have declined for more than a year as households become reluctant to purchase new homes due to the then prevailing COVID curbs and rising uncertainty about the economy. The government has been trying to boost demand in the real estate sector, which accounts for as much as 30% of the country's GDP. That's not innate net worth. That's not, oh yeah, most Americans, their biggest asset is their house. Their biggest investment is their house. GDP, gross domestic product, the fucking trade year after year after year. 30% of your country can't be the fucking shuffle of places you're supposed to live in. And Xi Jinping realized this at one point and had a big panic attack and said something like houses are for living, not for investing or something. And then they set the 3 red lines. And basically, they just went, it's a rental. Why don't we get it out on the freeway, go 150 miles an hour and throw it in reverse just to see what happens? And that's what they did to their economy. I have to say, Xi Jinping, we can watch this play out. It's like China's economy right now is the perfect experiment. It is a petri dish. I could do that. A petri dish for that we can all have an aerial view of the Donald Trump, Marianne Williamson economic policy in action. I'm not kidding. There's a mild variance in sector, but if you believe what either of them are saying, you can, yeah, I know I squeaked. It's all right. It's early. I was singing a lot yesterday. So, but we can watch if you took them seriously and you followed what they think is, especially when Trump is like Xi Jinping, super smart guy. If he tries to emulate any fucking thing that Xi Jinping does, we're done as a country. And Marianne Williamson's whole, we need an economic 180 in this country is so, it's a combination of, I can't tell whether it's fundamentally naive, brutally hypocritical, or straight up flim-flam. Just a fucking lie. Because honest to God, she's a millionaire. So if she wrecked the economy and yet it was still sound enough to recover, she would just buy the dip like every other rich person. She's got cash on hand. Yeah. Dragon X Flyer says, every horrible thing Trump says about America is currently happening in China. Yeah, that's why he says, notice he doesn't say America. He says our country or this country. Like, maybe he's broadcasting from China and we don't know it. I don't want to get too QAnon. Joe Biden's not, hey, Joe Biden's not even in the White House. He's in an Amazon movie studio that they made to look like he ain't even allowed inside the White House. Right? Yeah. So, I have to say, this is such a weird fucking thing. Can I show you, this war is, going on again, could be done. There we go. Yeah, is this, yeah, this part, I gotta say, Norway, I don't know what to say other than, Jesu namn gevitter bord, spjese dreke padatord. I only know how to say grace in Norwegian. I could sit at the dinner table anywhere in Norway and say grace. So, which I think is, a good social ability. I know my P's and Q's, most things. I've got to learn more Norwegian, obviously, at some point. But the Norwegians are supplying drones. I don't know if you guys saw this. They're going to supply 1,000 of these Black Hornet drones. Which, let me show you the picture of it. It's pretty fucking hilarious. That's scary shit. Look at that thing. Looks like a helicopter from Skynet. Just like, it's gonna, oh my God, it's a beast. What does it have, a laser on the front of it? What the shit is that? Okay, all it is a camera. That little fucker is, where's the other picture of it? That thing is, and feel free to screen grab, this long. These things are like, I'm fascinated by how, like, everybody's worried about, nuclear war in the same way that they talk about Big Brother. Big Brother has not been the problem. Little Brother is. AKA your fucking phone. This thing's ability to film everybody whenever people want to, and the fact that it's uploaded to a cloud, that there's no way you could put a camera every angle that you'd want to capture some stuff, and certainly having somebody review the footage is a pain in the ass. Shit, the only way you could actually surveil the dangerous groups of people just by volume is if they fucking film themselves, which is exactly what happened on Jan 6. That's why it's the biggest case in American history, is because these assholes went, I'm criming! Like a bunch of assholes. These are, and I want to find a smaller picture of it or whatever. These are spy drones. Let's see if I can find yeah. See, I don't want to get the pause. This guy right here. And I'll shrink this down to there. And the there you go. Mute it. Play this. This is the little guy. Look at him. Look at the little adorable guy. They released this footage. Doesn't that look like what Norway's like prime minister would look like? We're on my way to do things to do. Yeah. So this is the where is it? Yeah. These look at that little fucker. So why is this such a big deal? I'll tell you why. Because satellite recon is one way that the Ukrainians have been really supported by the U.S. and others. But these days, because of things like Google Earth and all the offshoots of that, and every foreign country with a space program that's just chucking fucking satellites in the air. And yes, they are Vikings. I agree. And it's interesting that the Vikings end up having kind of like the smallest, but maybe most potent addition to this. This is this is fucking amazing. The idea that you can get a lot of aerial footage. We've seen a bunch of it. We can also see the drones that actually drop the grenades behind enemy lines in Ukraine. We've seen a lot of that footage. I've seen far more than I need to. I've seen more people explode in the last year than if Sam Peckinpah directed every episode of Monty Python. But one of the things that they are finding once they get closer to where the actual Russian forces are, where they're fortified, where they where they get, is that if they use the larger size drones, they can be shot down, quite frankly. And by volume, replacing one, even if it's just one of your kind of run-of-the-mill DJI drones or something like that, it's relatively expensive. These little guys, though, they're just a little flying camera. That's it. And they just go. They just go and look. And, all problematic uses aside, including the use of the word problematic, all the issues that you might have if these are the wrong hands. By the way, you can hear them in civil society. You'll be able to hear these little bastards everywhere, and there's all kinds of zoning rules when you're not in a war zone that these are good for. And also, when it comes to standoffs with people who take hostages and shit like that, these things are going to be fucking magic. Beats the shit out of blindly throwing in tear gas and doing what the Russians did with the Chechen rebels that took over that theater in 2002, right? Yes, radar can't see them. You can't shoot them down because they're too small unless you get super fucking lucky. And if you do, there's another one right behind it. And these little guys can give you can send 3 of them out and they can fly in coordination. They can triangulate something. They can all move in concert, that kind of stuff. And we're at a certain point, we're this close, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, to a box of these fuckers being thrown like fucking cicadas or locust into a war zone and just showing where everybody is. Every detail you could possibly take, including heart rate and all that shit. I'm telling you, if these things don't already do that, that's less than 5 years away. Yes, drone swarms can scout massive areas quickly, and you don't lose your battle-ready ones, the ones that can carry munitions, that kind of stuff. So this is thanks, Norway. This is actually awesome. And I also think that, first of all, the U.S. government has similar ones. We have quadcopter versions of these. They're smaller. They don't have free-floating propellers on them, so that so they don't break. Essentially, they're not going to harm you. These guys don't care. If you grab the fucking thing out of the air, it's not going to hurt your hand in any major way. But they will break easier. Ours have, we have like the little quadcopter kind. Well, fuck, I'll show you. Okay, so one of the issues you have when you have a drone in a civilian area or a small, like you want to fly it inside a building or look around, is that if the propeller bounces against something, these are great above ground, but if the propeller bounces against something, it'll just fall or it'll wreck itself because it'll lose balance and it'll tip over, and that's that. So there are these. See, this is the thing. This is not even a top end one. I got this years ago. They've improved greatly ever since. This is what this little fucker looks like. It flattens out like that. And the pro ones click into place and stay that way. But this guy, it has a protective coating, like a casing, rather, around its propellers. So it basically keeps it from, if it clips something, from knocking the whole thing off. And if you're flying it out around a room, which is why I got this one initially, if you're flying around a room with people in it, you don't want it to hit people. And you want to see? I'll show you even cooler. This is the old one. You want to see what the new ones look like? Give me 1 second. Where the hell is my backpack? So, I got this one because and I've shot some video. You guys have seen it. It's Sexy Liberal, and you guys have seen, maybe if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me a couple of videos from this thing, from the jam where we were rehearsing or sound check rather, and then at Sexy Liberal when we were setting up. And I think I used it in DC or whatever, and I'm going to use it more. Um, this is Snap Camera has this thing called Pixie, and it's yellow, so it's starting to, it green screens out a little bit. But it's got a camera on the front, and it's got a camera right there, and it kind of can coordinate. You can use whichever. You can fly overhead and take a downward picture, or you can, this kind of thing. And this thing has like 4 or 5. This goes to the whole idea of, like, if this is the consumer model, imagine what's available to the military. Now, that gap has shrunk in the last, I don't know, especially the last 10 years, of course, right? In the last 10 years, the distance between consumer available electronics and what the military has, just because physics are physics. So it can only go, you can only get so far ahead of everybody else, unless they've just straight up got anti-gravity and alien technology, which everybody seems to think they do after that fucking stupid hearing. Anyways, yeah, I got it from Area 51. No, this isn't that expensive. I initially got this for Summer because she's, she does her Facebook videos and the like, and they were filming and they needed like a cutting angle for some of the stuff they were doing. And I was like, well, this thing will follow you. So you just like turn it on and it will, like, let's see if it, like, I don't want to fly it in here because yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. It needs to charge its battery anyways, but it's really cool, and it just delivers it to your phone or whatever. But this guy, if you'll notice, has bumpers all around it, so that if it's flying around a room or something and it hits a person, it's not going to hurt. You're not going to hurt anybody, and that is also great, I would argue, in a trench, because it can go through the and the FPV drones that are available, that are like competition drones. Let me explain something to you. You know how I'm of two minds about sports, and we'll go back to you guys real quick. I'm of two minds about sports. On the one hand, sports was always a way of keeping the strong amongst you strong and push them to always be stronger, faster, whatever, more capable, regardless, physically, just in case bad people show up. It'd be nice to have a dude who can lift 1,000 pounds and another one who can throw a rock 100 yards and shit like that. This is called the Pixie, by the way. This little guy was called it's Snapchat. The company Snap makes it, and I have to say, it's cool. It was a little, I think, pricey for what you get, because it's got very limited use, but it does what it says on the tin. It's exactly what you're supposed to get from it, and this will only get better. But back to sports. Sports, I think, have two purposes. One is to keep your people, attenuated towards physical greatness overall, so that you don't get so slovenly that you get taken over, like what happened to the Greeks or whatnot, the Romans, in theory. They get so, like, enamored with your own hedonism that you can't fight back no matter who shows up. So you got to keep people on the ready, and sports are a great way to do it, because there's a lot of this in sports, a lot of testosterone, a lot of built up tension. If it gets too serious, you have pop-offs. Look at soccer games. Anyways, the other reason is to keep the big people who are like that, who are already competitive by nature, who are already physically stronger or genetically more predisposed to speed and strength and whatever, to keep them busy and appreciated, so they don't turn on you. So they don't just, you take the, like, guys, maybe put some pads on that fucker, let him smash into some other dudes. You know what I mean? As opposed to, if he gets too bored, what he could do could be awful. That makes sense? Sports has that purpose. And as we get into esports and technologically based sports, some of it is like NASCAR. The reason why NASCAR is a thing is because the G forces you pull in that, and the like the strenuous nature of the impact in your body when you're in that vehicle for a long time, or even the focus and the idea of doing it. You can part that out to a bunch of people. Like NASCAR fans are perfect for pilot programs, to be a pilot in the military, that kind of thing. There's a thin line. You can't necessarily have just flyers go into the air. You like the idea. There's not, as far as what your body deals with. Those are very in line, right? And it makes a lot of sense that they go, all right, we need these guys. We need pilots. We need people who can put up with the G-force or think it's cool, or we need eventual astronauts and the like. And there's a seat of people who, what are they going to watch and do that might make them go, man, I could fucking get in that cockpit and just fucking do the fucking, right? That, yes, F1 racing, Formula One racing, same thing. But there are some areas that heretofore, there is no analog for what it takes to do this activity. There is no previous history in humankind of. There's simply nothing in human history like first-person drone flying, for example, or drone flying using gaming controls in an active situation where you are dispossessed, you are separate, you are the physical umbilical cord is cut so much from what the activity that you're engaged in that it engages an entirely different part of the brain. Has Trump been indicted? Are we waiting for the next one? Because they're going to. We know they're going to. I'll get to that in just a moment. See if I can find it. FPV drone games. All right. So a couple of things. One of the things you see when you get people, you want to get kids interested in sports these days, make a video game around it. Call of Duty has a whole like veteran support system that allows people to kind of port their love for those kind of things and their interest in firearms and all that kind of stuff into a constructive way into the military. NFL, NHL, NBA, all this. If you're playing those games, the idea that you also want to play it physically, and obviously there's a separation. Calm down. But if you are going to get into those things, you're also going to do that. And so, but none of them have a prep point that is equal to maybe Call of Duty because it's first person, right? Close to that. But drone racing, in and of itself, for example, let's see. If you drone racing, let me try to show you this. Is some of the craziest visual shit that I think humans have been engaged in. Let's see if I can do this and show you guys. Yeah. I'll pause this. Go back to here. Hold on. I have this course description, top right. Featured teaser. Okay, let's look at this guy right here. I'm just giving you an example. This is the Drone Racing League. Oh, that's the game. Never mind. Hold on. Back up. I don't want a fake game, you big dummy. I want an actual one. Go back to here. Yeah. Drone Racing League is here. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Well, here, yeah, this could be an example of it. This is so. These guys are. It's like, I think of it as a physical video game. See the headsets they've got on? They wear these eye covers, these goggles, basically, and they can see where they're flying through there. It's basically like a video game because they get real time feedback from the environment and that kind of stuff. They try to throw them off with lights and all kinds of other shit. But ultimately, this is, I would argue, a recruitment tool of the future for, person-driven drones in all kinds of situations, especially military reconnaissance use. without getting hit. And electronic countermeasures being what they are, and people's ability to shoot shit down, once it's in the air and all that kind of stuff. Ready Player One, Last Starfighter. Yeah, it's very close to that. But they wear these goggles while they do it that give them a view that they see out of the front of, and to some degree the sides, the periphery of the drone itself. And it's a fucking thing, man. It's a growing industry. It took off a while back. It is a physicalization of video games in some ways, and it's nuts. And part of this, you can tell that it's ratcheted up the necessity, what you would have to do in a real battle zone situation with one of these things, is far lower than what you would need in a gaming situation. In the same way that no fight lasts 15 rounds in real life, but training fighters, layers of fighters physically over the centuries makes sense. You'd want heavyweights, people who can pound for pound, beat their way through a field of guys less than them. So the idea is that a heavyweight boxer, for example, in reality, if you're ever in a situation where there's a physical battle between two peoples, the reason you'd have heavyweight boxers, short range fighters, and all that kind of stuff is that you send them in different levels. And think of heavyweight fighters in the pantheon of battle readiness as the Goliaths of your physical armed forces, right? Everybody's run out of ammunition. We're just talking about fist fights. That you'll have a bunch of guys who can fight short fights or whatever, and they might be great at taking one person out. But the heavyweight dude can beat people for an hour. Hal Breaking, Montana judge, landmark decision regarding fossil fuels. Oh, okay, cool. I'll check that out. We'll look at that real quick. That's because they just found that was okay. Montana. I didn't see that one. Okay. All right. So we don't want to delay too much. First U.S. Oh, is that the climate one? Yeah, we'll try and bring this in a second. So, point I'm trying to Saha has the Hunter Biden laptop. Thank you. Somebody just make sure you guys remind me who has it. Okay. Boston Robotic Soldiers, everybody's a heavyweight. Yeah. Well, except they aren't, because again, I've shown you guys those EMP pulse rifles. Those are the weapons of the future. You can drop a robot easier than you can drop a person, because you could do it through walls in a way that you couldn't necessarily with people, without wrecking the wall. So anyways, heavyweight fighters versus, say, your MMA crowd or what have you. Their levels of necessity of physical altercation, and you're going to need some people who can carry shit a long way and fight no matter what. And no matter how easy stuff gets, whether you get wagons and chariots and shit like that, which, these were force accelerators that humans came up with over the centuries, you're still going to need to make sure that a large section of your populace has some physical resiliency in a bunch of different areas. And right now we're in a race for cognitive resiliency, the ability to think as fast as the computerized countermeasures that other people will have, because it's again, you can't outrun the physics. So there's always going to be a limitation on sort of AI controlled robotic stuff, because as a human being is always going to be in a position to make a decision about them, or the very people that own or operate the things are going to end up fucking dead by their own hand. So point I'm trying to make is they are categorically creating a new generation of fighters using the cognitive ability aspects of things, and you can track it, and it's an organic thing. There's no they. It's not the Illuminati. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a need, and people are going, if there's a need, how are we going to fill it? Who normally comes this way? We got to feed that. So if we need to feed that, somebody wants to make a movie or a TV show about that, let's funnel some money their way, either from an industry or a governmental standpoint. And it happens the world over. And that race car, the Gran Turismo movie or Grand whatever, the race car movie that's coming out about the video gamer who ended up on the track. That's the sort of opening salvo of this. And behind the scenes, like I said, there's tons of esports and tons of this like drone racing and physical stuff. All the while, the resurgence of things like American Ninja Warrior and all that shit, right? There's a direct track to how do we keep people engaged in their physical person and how do we outsmart the coming threats. Let's see. Has Hal heard of? Hold on. I think we talked about them, but yeah. Elliot Yudkowsky. That sounds familiar. Do we talk about them recently? Hold on. I'm gonna look it up and see if, because I think I have a link in here that we talked about before. Dunk. There you go. Megan. Yes, that AI guy. Oh yeah, I know him. Okay. Yeah, he's a doom sprayer. He's been saying this shit since well before any of it started, but from a very like Terminator 2 mentality. I mean, you're never gonna run out of places to sit down and doom spray. And yeah, he's an AI doomer. Yeah, Gran Torino, that's what it was. Thank you. Plus, you can pass the blame. Right. It's a Weipo article. Okay, thank you. So a bunch of things. I don't even know where we're there's so much news this morning. It's ridiculous. Not the least of which is, let me see if I can. This is from the Kiev Independent this morning. Malyar calls for calm about news concerning Ukrainian attack across the Dnipro. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Malyar sought to tamp down speculations about a Ukrainian raid across the Dnipro River in the Kherson Oblast. There's no reason for excitement. I just returned from those places. Yes, certain units performed a certain task there. On August 9th, the Kiev Independent source in Ukraine's armed forces confirmed that Ukraine had successfully conducted a raid deep into Russian-held territories across the river. The theory is that they went across, they snatched a Russian commander, and he's been feeding them map coordinates and all kinds of stuff ever since. I personally believe that he's more than likely he defected. He got message to them that he wanted to defect, so he helped coordinate a hole in the line so they could come get him. Yeah. So pretty fascinating. And then we'll go to Gran Torino. Yeah, Gran Torino is Eastwood. That's right. Gran Turismo is the new one, the game itself. Right. That's what we're talking about. So hold on one second. I'm opening my Washington Post because there we go. See where okay, there it is. Judge rules in favor of Montana. Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. Here you go. This is pretty cool. This guy right here. Judge rules in favor of Montana youths in landmark climate decision. This is a monumental decision, said a lawyer for the young plaintiffs, and could influence how judges handle some similar cases in other states. Yes and no, but let's dig in. In the first ruling of its kind nationwide, a Montana state court decided Monday in favor of young people who alleged the state violated their right to a clean and healthy environment by promoting the use of fossil fuels. And this is the key part. Promoting the use of fossil fuels by through its basically helping a local industry sell to the rest of the world, or supporting the fossil fuel industry. Largely in Montana, it's these days anyways, it's natural gas fracking. And they do have a lot of oil, obviously, but natural gas is one of the biggest parts of it. Yeah, this is the court determined that the provision in the Montana Environmental Policy Act has harmed the state's environment and the young plaintiffs by preventing Montana from considering the climate impacts of energy projects. The provision is accordingly unconstitutional, the court said. To win, the experts say they'll win, beg your pardon. Experts say could energize the environmental movement and reshape climate litigation across the country, ushering in a wave of cases aimed at advancing action in climate change. Only in the states where they have an active participation in the promotion of those things over other stuff, or where their local Senate has intentionally turned down federal funds or something like that. Totally cool though. I mean, I'm for it. It's good, but I wouldn't jump through our shirts too much. It is Montana. People around the world are watching this case. The ruling represents a rare victory for climate activists who have tried to use the courts to push back against government policies and industrial activities they say are harming the planet. In this case, it involved 16 young Montanans, ranging from 5 to 22, who brought the nation's first constitutional and first youth-led climate lawsuit to go to trial. Though the cumulative number of climate cases around the world, okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the experts said the Montana youth had an advantage in the state's constitution, which guarantees a right to a clean and healthful environment. That was way easier to do back in the day when you're just like, it's fucking Montana, man. Of course you're welcome to it. Look outside. It's fucking perfect. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you can have the right to a clean and healthful environment, but you don't have to go stick your fucking face over a goddamn oil well. And just because it's natural doesn't mean you should consume it. I've been telling my kids that for years. Coal is critical to the state's economy, and Montana is home to the largest recoverable coal reserves in the country. And again, reserves. I mean, coal has been fading from use. Plaintiff's attorney said the state has never denied a permit for a fossil fuel project. That's also an issue where they are not doing their due diligence environmentally. There, as a matter of fact, that in and of itself is an action that says that they are actively supporting projects that they know are environmentally negative, that are dangerous and aren't well managed and all that kind of shit. And that's a violation of federal law too. But yeah, that's why. Again, there's so much CYA in some of these cases for these judges and for local politicians, just to like outsource all the hard stuff to the federal government. They want to tell us how to live. I mean, we'd rather have it, but states' rights. Across 5 days of emotional testimony in June, the youth made claims about injuries they had suffered as a result of climate change. 15-year-old with asthma described herself as a prisoner in my own home. Again, climate change not being the primary thing. This is pollution. And I've said this many times. If you're talking to someone who doesn't believe in climate change, downshift your argument, or upshift it, depending on your opinion, to pollution specifically. And that will shut them down faster than anything else, because nobody wants to be pro-pollution. There's just a bunch of people who don't believe that the impact we're having on the climate is outweighed by the blah, 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 and we've got to, we got to move faster than the Chinese, and therefore, they're going to react that way. So you just go, why are we polluting our own air? Why are we killing our own children? Why are we sending 100,000 kids to the hospital with asthma attacks and respiratory illnesses caused by environmental toxins every year when we don't have to? Honest to God, this isn't even about, can you have coal plants? Can you have natural gas fracking? Can you have oil? Just fucking regulate it. Keep it as safe as possible as we mitigate away from it. Again, the irony is that most people that talk about climate change in the negative, like as far as disbelievers on the right, talk about it as a, quote, religion. This religion of climate change, that it's a religion. Meanwhile, at the same time, making religious arguments for all of their shit. So fine. All right, let's shift down out of the fucking religious and start talking about the practicals. Oh, China underwater, Beijing is sinking. We'll talk about the floods in a moment. Yeah. By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mornings Megaworldwide. We're a lot more laid back in the morning. We jump around. Hope you're enjoying yourself today. I'm enjoying yourself. All right. When isolating with COVID during a period of intense wildfire smoke. And again, this is why this does not port elsewhere. But okay, Ricky Held, the 22-year-old plaintiff for whom the lawsuit is named, detailed how extreme weather has hurt her family's ranch. This is why this judge probably did it. This is the primary one. It's because there's a lot of ranchers up there, and they're like, "This is big sky country, and you're there. This one company is fucking up our big sky country." Held testified that a favorable judgment would make her more hopeful for the future. I know that climate change is a global issue, but Montana has to take responsibility for our part in that. Attorneys for the state countered that Montana's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is small. If the law in question were altered or overturned, there would be no meaningful impact or appreciable effect on the climate. Agreed. Which is why you talk about pollution with these fuckers. It would have a direct impact on their ranch. Wildfires being what they are, the reality is having a coal plant and fracking and all the other shit that they have in Montana that affects the waters and the air in Montana directly. That's why it matters. And that's why it has room for appeal even, but whatever. The state began and rested its defense on the same day, bringing the trial to an unexpected early close on June 20th and a pivot from its expected defense disputing the climate science behind the plaintiff's case. The case focused instead on arguing that the legislature would weigh in on the contested law, not the judiciary, which is what they're going to do. They're going to go fucking Montana their way out of this with Republican votes and, change the languaging of it. Russell derided the case in his closing statement as a week-long airing of political grievances that properly belong in the legislature, not a court of law. Yeah, right, because they know they own the legislature. Gerard said the change in strategy came as a surprise. Everyone expected them to put on more vigorous defense, and they may have concluded that the underlying science of climate change was so strong that they didn't want to contest it, or that it would be a waste of time because they're just going to, and money, just rest, we'll write the law, we own the legislature. That's what they thought. I would like to think that they've come to their senses. No. Though the state is expected to appeal the decision, experts said the favorable verdict for the youths could influence how judges approach similar cases. I'm on the fence. We'll see. They're all corrupt. I wouldn't even put it down as corruption. These are the legislature there is elected by the people of Montana, and they elect people in large part who I don't know why, but align their quote-unquote conservative values with the pilfering of the environment. They're like religious dominionists, right? Who believe that, God gave us so we can just, dig it all up and set it on fire. Like that, and if he wants us to stop, he'll tell us. You mean with like tornadoes and wildfires and floods and shit like that? Oh shit. But we might need to rethink this. God wants us to dig up all these, because these dinosaurs shouldn't have been, they never existed in the first place, so we got to burn all this oil so nobody asks any questions. And isn't it funny that, all the signs that you talk about God apparently telling people, like, hey, knock that shit off, all point to their behavior towards the environment, and they're like, and I don't think they're getting the message. Right? Manifest destiny. Nah, not quite. It's if it was an act of if it was manifest destiny or the theory of manifest destiny that drove that kind of behavior, it wouldn't be anywhere else. And you could argue that environmentally it's worse in South America, it's worse in Southeast Asia, it's worse in China, very much so, and lots of Africa. So if the whole idea is that it's a white settler mentality that drove this kind of behavior, no, that doesn't stand up to any scrutiny at all. Good point. Pollution sells. Climate is too vague. Yeah, and again, it depends on who you're talking to. If somebody can grasp the idea that we live on this fucking beautiful blue marble in the middle of nowhere, and its atmosphere is, by minor degrees, very fucking delicate, and it's keeping us all alive. Maybe not fuck with it. Maybe, if we can help it. Now, there's a lot of variability where before life collapses and all that kind of stuff. We just don't want to be in a situation where we're contributing to a point where there's a point of no return. But people can't grasp that. You and I can, but a lot of conservative people, apparently, can't grasp that concept. Nothing bigger than God or the sky, man. So, all right, fine. Then let's deal with what you can understand. I don't have to dumb down the argument, but you can understand why you don't want, benzene in your fucking rivers. Right? Okay, cool. Nobody wants the responsibility to change? That's not true. That isn't true. I mean, you have a recycle bin. Do you live in an area that has a recycling garbage can? You do. So you can believe whether that's a solution or not, or whether it works or not, or whether people use it rightly or not, but you can't disagree with the fact that the proliferation of recycling bins and garbage as a separate thing, so that we don't have more landfills and we can recycle some plastics and paper, is not an indication of the vast majority of people, at least in the United States. I'm assuming, that I'm talking to somebody in the United States, but or a similar place, like a Western country, European Union kind of stuff, because they all have similar rules about this stuff. But you can say that people aren't doing enough. You can say that people, only do with what's within their kind of minor circle of influence, but they are doing it. And they didn't used to. I'm just not willing to write off humanity because everybody's not moving as fast as the most panicked among us. And when you do that, everybody shuts down. Again, this is it lands us right in the middle of smoke them if you got them, and well, fuck, I can't do anything. I might not as well, I guess it's better if I just do what I was doing, right? I live in a zero waste community. Unfortunately, people keep putting trash in it, so it goes to the dump. I use a wheelchair and take mine out correctly. Why don't they? I agree. That's on a personal level. It's a question for your neighbors. But and I'm sure, what do you think it is? 80-20 rule, Slayer Chick? As far as whether people use it right or don't use it? Hey, CSL, what's happening? Thank you so much. Please talk about the Kansas seized computers at the hometown paper. Oh, yeah. So, and that poor woman who had the heart attack because I guess her son works at the paper. She had like a fucking dead zone moment, I guess. Let's see if I can find a paper that, there we go. This is for those of you that don't know, let's see. Yeah, here you go. There's a couple of really fucked up parts of the story. Yeah, this is a very yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why Glenn Beck's not doing a story about this. Because it sounds like the Great Reset to me. Raid of a small Kansas newspaper raises free press concerns. The search of Marion County Records Office, and by the way, the Marion County Record is the name of the thing. So that's why I think some of the story has fell by the wayside, unless people make the connection that that's the newspaper. There's like a records office. Oh, they raided some records office. No, it's the record. I'm just saying. And people breezing by stories, that's one of the reasons why the speed bumps that should exist, that slow you down and make you look at it, get shaved down by some small factors of just serendipity and whatever. Anyways, led to the seizure of computer servers and cell phones, reporters and editors. Okay, so small town in Kansas has become a battleground over the First Amendment after the local police force and county sheriff's deputies raided the office of the Marion County Record. Raids of news organizations, okay, blah, blah. The searches conducted on Friday appeared to be linked to an investigation into how a document containing information about a local restaurateur found its way to the local paper, and whether the restaurant owner's privacy was violated in the process. The editor of the newspaper said the raids may have more to do with the tensions between the paper and officials in Marion, which is what they're gonna do. A town of about 2,000 north of Wichita. By the way, I would like to say that both of these groups, the newspaper, the Record, and the Marion County Sheriff's Office, didn't do fuck all to catch BTK for years. Dude was running around all over the area, and what did you guys fucking around with whether somebody gets an A or a B. Anyways, the raid is one of several. Yeah, the raid is one of several recent cases of local authorities taking. Okay, can't relate it to that. Doesn't. It's meaningless when they do that. There you go. The newspaper's owner and editor, Eric Meyer, said in an interview that the newspaper had done nothing wrong. The newspaper did not publish an article about the government record, though Mr. Meyer said it had received a copy from a confidential source and that one of its reporters had verified its authenticity using the state records online. In an email, Marion's chief of police, Gideon Cody, defended the raid, which was earlier reported. I believe when the rest of the story is available to the public, the judicial system that is being questioned will be vindicated. He declined to talk about the investigation. On Sunday, more than 30 news organizations and press freedom advocates, but okay, they're jumping to it because you just can't raid them, period, end of story, no matter what. There are times when, journalists aren't above the law. They just have a wider berth for, what they can say to the law. And I guess technically what they can say to their audience, because of full freedom of press, you have the freedom to withhold information as well when you're talking about stuff. They have a wider berth in this area, but it doesn't perfectly protect you. There are limits on it, and that's where, like WikiLeaks with Julian Assange. Julian Assange's problem was not the publishing of any of the documents that he had. The issue he had was that in the Chelsea Manning case, I think it was specifically linked to, he was directing Chelsea Manning both to what documents they wanted and how to get them. And there may have been even some money spread around to help get the documents out. That's not the same thing as a confidential informant coming and getting it. That's spy work. That's different. Go look in this file and bring me what's in there is illegal. If a confidential source wants to bring shit to you, and there's a lot of leeway in what people say, independently to those people and conversations that they have with them. But most of the time, you're supposed to keep track of all that shit so that you can't just set up a spy network posing as journalism and then just post everything you can get your hands on. There are laws about that. And that's where I think the attack the institutions, that's the TFG playbook. It's again, I'm not willing to jump straight into that's what this was. And there is a distinction. And it's okay to, like, if this was a huge overreach and if they're just willy-nilly in their small town police force thinking they can do this shit or whatever, then fuck them. They'll get busted. But if somebody at the Marion Recorder, whatever, said, I heard there's a document, or they'd have to write a document that said this. If that, they're, let's say a confidential source is saying that, they're letting somebody's, I don't know, fucking food spoilage issues. They're hiding, that, because the mayor is friends with the guy who runs this restaurant. So they're hiding the health department reports about it. And the person goes, I can't get those reports, but I've seen them. And they go, well, we're going to need some confirmation of it. If I help you find out if I get the password or I get a way into those computer systems, that's me breaking in. But if I give it to you, you could get it and bring it to me and you're still my confidential source. That's illegal. Because you are effectively creating the potential for creating a false narrative where you selectively release news based on the information you want out, not the information available in total. Yes, they raided his 98-year-old mother's house. She ended up dying. Yes, that's the other part of this whole thing that's just horrifying. Let me see if I can find where is it? Is it here? Yeah. This is the really sad part. And this is partly why it's getting as much news as it is. Joan Meyer, the 98-year-old co-owner of a small newspaper, Kansas newspaper, collapsed and died in her home Saturday, a day after the police raided her home and the Marion County Records Office. I mean, she's 98, and it's stressful and all that stuff. So this is not a police beating. And there's no age on criminality if you're engaged in something like that, or you live in the house where somebody younger than you is doing the thing, or again, if she got raided, let's play this out. her house gets raided because her editor was engaged in criminal activity and he was hiding records or communications at her house about it, and she's 98 years old, the police raid on her house isn't, and again, they didn't bash the door in. They served a search warrant. Again, this is the danger of this is where Trump using the word raided. It's not a raid if the execution of a search warrant is not a raid. There's no evidence of criminal activity by the Marion record that we know of. And again, that's what they were looking for. That's why you have a search warrant. You have probable cause, you get a search warrant. I'm not defending these guys. I'm talking about the generalized law. If you're talking about the sacrosanct nature of you can't, the journalism is so sacrosanct, you cannot arrest a journalist for anything ever, then I'm going to tell you about the slippery slope on the other side of that. Of course, there's sometimes you can do it, and it's when they are fabricating, manipulating the story, specifically using information that is either confidential or violates some other person's right to privacy. Because there's a governmental aspect of this as well. If the press gets a free pass to break into your house and share your shit everywhere and you have no recourse, then the government could effectively just hire certain journalists to fuck with people it wants destroyed. And I'll give you a good example of that. Again, this is not defending this situation. This is an argument for watching the story very carefully and dealing with it like adults. It is very sad this woman died, but I would argue in this case, if you're going to talk about the morality, if her death was the result of this search and the stress about it, the responsibility of the stress, and if a crime is being committed, is not on the part of the police who executed the search warrant. It's on the person who committed the crime and involved her in it. Right? If you hide fentanyl in your grandmother's nightstand and the police know about it, they find out that's where he goes to his grandmother's house, and every time he comes out he's selling pills. They have it, they execute a search warrant. They don't kick the door in. They don't come in through the fucking windows. They execute a search warrant. And if she's so stressed out by that she dies, it's the fault of the person who hid the fentanyl in her fucking nightstand. Not the police for going, she's old, I guess we just let fentanyl be sold in the area. You see what I mean? This is why we have a legal system. It's why, by the way, there's so many stages in it. That's why there's appeals. And that's why, by the way, that in the case of someone executing a search warrant on your home, you as a human being have a lot of rights, and you should rest easy in those rights. You get what I'm saying? If there's no crime there, again, the investigators had a very reasonable belief that there was a crime there, it's not their fault. It's a sad circumstance, but it's not their fault. And they didn't scare her, and they didn't fucking frisk her, and they didn't shove her up against a wall. She's 98. It was stressful, no doubt, but they didn't attack her. So on that end, we can't blanket this entire situation, and they have a responsibility to carry out a search warrant because investigators found reason to do this. Now, again, this is all things being equal. So the officers engaged in that. I'm sure nobody was screaming at her, 98, get on the floor, that kind of stuff. It's just, that said, and I'm assuming that they're just acting like human beings. On the other side, though, if the person was like, she has nothing to do with this, it was on me, or I did something. Fentanyl possession is a little different than just writing a story that someone doesn't like. The lady was the mother of the editor and co-owned the house. Right. The question wasn't, they didn't bum rush her, Kelly. Hold on, we'll switch over to this. And this is, it's a good conversation to have. Again, the co-owner of and editor of the paper, who was perhaps, maybe they had communication. They need your devices because you got to see both sides. And she was communicating with them even at 98 years old, or somebody was doing it in the house that lives there as well, or is it somebody else that her another relative that does it, or they just store things there, or the server for the papers in her house, or whatever. They will need that stuff for the case. That's it. and they should be able to get it. And you can, file a lawsuit and all that to freeze it in place. How did you read what actually happened to her? No, we're getting to that point. Okay, hold on. We'll read this out because I'm talking in the abstracts about why you can serve a warrant on someone like that, not specific to this case, but we'll get into the specifics now. Let's see. Yeah, Marion police. There you go. Okay. This is here. Okay. Joan Meyer, 98-year-old woman. She's the one who passed away. Police took Meyer's computer and a router used by an Alexa smart speaker during the raid at her home, according to the paper. Officers at the records office seized personal cell phones, computers, newspapers, file server, and other equipment. Cody also allegedly forcibly grabbed reporter Deb Groover's cell phone, injuring a finger that had previously dislocated. Okay, this was not at the house. Okay. Our first priority is to be able to publish next week. They're talking about, okay, it is true that in most cases it requires police to use subpoenas rather than search warrants to search the premises of journalists unless they themselves are suspects in the offense that is subject to the search. Friday's raid was conducted on the basis of a search warrant. The search warrant posted online by the Kansas Reflector indicates police were investigating identity theft and unlawful acts concerning computers. It also indicated police were looking for documents and records pertaining to local restaurateur Carrie Newell. According to the record, Newell had accused the paper of illegally obtaining drunk driving information about Newell and supplying it to the Marion councilwoman Ruth Herbel. The record did not seek out the information. Rather, it was provided by a source who sent it to the newspaper via social media and also sent it to Herbel. The record verified the information about Newell through public records, but did not plan to publish it, believing the information had been, quote, intentionally leaked to the newspaper as part of a legal sparring between Newell and her estranged husband. It's small town shit, man. That's what I've said when we talk about these, they always what I love about small town? Everybody knows everybody, which means everybody's up in everybody else's shit. Let's see. The record justified Newell through public records. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Director Madavi believes very strongly that freedom of the press is a vanguard of American democracy, but another principle of our free society is equal application of the law. No one is above the law, whether public official or representative of the media. Dozens of other news organizations are condemning it. Yes, we know. Let's see. Your department. This is dozens of news organizations. Okay. The raid appears to have violated federal law and the First Amendment, according to Seth Stern, advocacy of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which is what he's going to say, and he should say. And all the eyes should all be trained on this. Every T, every I. Right? This looks like the latest example of American law enforcement officers treating the press in a manner previously associated with authoritarian regimes. The anti-press rhetoric has become so pervasive in this country. Okay, that's Trump's, enemy, the people thing. Law enforcement's sweeping raid on the Marion County Record and confiscation of its equipment almost certainly violates federal law and puts the paper's very ability to publish the news in jeopardy. No question. And again, I'm talking about the technicality of this. So would the paper being engaged in the removal of documents. Now, the problem is that this sounds like, when we read it, like Chelsea Manning, reality winner level obfuscate, like spy work around this. The problem is, in a small town like this could just be a piece of paper on a desk that somebody took a picture with their phone and sent it, right? It's much more of a wet net, right? And so let's see. The newspaper owner collapsed and died after the raid. This I understand. And again, the point I am making is that this goes. We can have two conversations about this. We can have the conversation about our sympathy about a 98-year-old woman who passed away, which is pretty simple. It's sad, period. We can also look at the assignment of blame for her death, which is the bigger conversation that most people are talking in the chat room. Most what we're talking about. No, it isn't the best article. This is CBS News's version of events, and we'll look at some other things. But let's see, Duke. Why did that go in there? There you go. And we started off we bounced from the New York Times article as well. So there two things. One is the absolute sadness of this woman dying. That doesn't move. That's immovable. The culpability in her death is in question until the legal case plays out. Now, in my estimation, deference in the argument should be and is given to the news organization in this situation. Because you want to err on that side of it. It is the exact same reason why I'm against the death penalty. I'm not against the death penalty because I don't think some fuckers deserve to die. I'm well beyond that. Of course they do. My question is that how do you deal with the fact that if you have a system in place that puts people to death, you're eventually going to get it wrong. No system is perfect, and you're going to end up killing an innocent person. And if I'm not willing, if we can just lock these people up and keep them in a fucking cell forever, do that. Because you can always let someone out of a jail cell if you're wrong. You cannot bring them back to life. No one has ever been paroled from a cemetery, as I will often say about the rights that are afforded victims in this issue. Hal Sparks doing all he can to maintain the status quo. How so? I mean, I appreciate that as a sentence, but I don't know what you're talking about. Status quo this is not the status quo. This is an aberrant situation. We do not, on the regular, have police raids of newspapers, period, end of story. In the United States. This is in the United States, anyways. If you're talking about worldwide status quo, yes, most journalists are in danger in the rest of the world. Here, however, we keep a keen eye on that. And that's why I'm saying you always give deference to the paper in this situation. That said, and otherwise you get a situation where journalism is the perfect cover. I mean, I'll give you an example. Look at Tucker Carlson's I'm just asking questions. When he is absolutely not asking questions, he is making value assertions and arguably manipulating facts specifically around things like vaccines and climate and that kind of stuff, measurable stuff that he is downplaying certain aspects, upplaying other elements of it, but saying that I have the freedom to say whatever I want on social media or anywhere else. I'm not violating the terms of service of said social media sites because I'm just asking questions. When they are not asking questions, they are asserting specifically an idea that that COVID was a bioweapon, or be able to let it happen, or fucking Soros is behind everything, that kind of shit. Okay. In the world of journalism, we found a fix for that. And it's not overt. It's relatively below the radar, unfortunately, with a lot of people, which is once the sun goes down, cable news is about opinion, especially on Fox News. I mean, it's threaded throughout the rest, but that's the idea, is that facts go to sleep at 6 o'clock. And they just kind of operate on that. As a matter of fact, in court cases against Tucker Carlson, he has actually made the case, it's just entertainment. Yeah. The new chief of police was in cahoots with the restaurant owner who was against the newspaper owner. The police chief had been fired from his job earlier for sexual harassment. The restaurant owner was trying to cover up driving without a license, which the police were allowing. The blame is all on the police chief. I'm fine with that. That's how it should play out. And I would say in cahoots part of it, maybe them trying to, help them in that regard. That's what I said. It's small town shit. This sounds like small town shit. And it will, by the way, it will play out in the courts, more than likely, that this was, because of those very reasons, an illegal raid, and the culpability for the woman's death, if it's fine related to that, is not even in the officers who showed up, who I'm sure tried to be as nice as they could be in that circumstance. And I'm assuming this just based on humanity. But that chief of police fault. I would put the blame for her death at his feet. Does that make sense? Because those officers wouldn't have been there just doing the actual search warrant if it wasn't for him. right? Who approved the warrant? Well, again, did they approve the warrant based on, cut and dry real information? Again, I would argue that a local judge and a local sheriff, I mean, are they basically the same fucking person in a town that size? I'm shocked when they aren't related in most towns the size of Marion. Point I'm trying to make is that there are laws in place, and we're talking about the law here, not this particular circumstance. And that's when we get into these situations where we have to argue this out. How does it extrapolate across the rest of the law? And that's the way it's the only way this can have meaning. Is how does this apply, and how, if there's a weakness in the law, that's where we would want to find out in a situation so this doesn't happen again. Right? And we want to pin this down whenever when any illegal activity like this, without overcorrecting so much that the Assanges of the world can just get away with literal spy work inside the United States, using other people and putting them in legal jeopardy and just hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy. That's it. What's Al trying is she should have just complied, I guess. She did comply. No, I'm saying she should have felt and this is, I don't know what the fuck Marion is like. None of us do. We're not there. The entire police force of 5 people with 2 sheriffs rated. Yeah. How big is the house? How big is the stuff? I'm not arguing their tactics in this situation. It's wrong in that regard. Again, if indeed the warrant wasn't warranted, yeah. I'm not arguing that we should be able to raid journalists. All right, this is becoming an empty bounce around conversation where I would argue this is in essence what we should be talking about beyond this story. Magistrate appears to have issued that warrant without any affidavit or wrongdoing on which to base it from. Okay, that makes sense. Then I would say they and the sheriff are at fault. And I think they're in cahoots with one of the local politicians, and they should all go to jail. We're good? We get that part? Okay, now can we talk about why the law is created the way it is, and why, if we're going to learn anything from this and better our laws to protect people like her, to protect the Jones of the world. And let's see. Meyer said the raid and seizure stemmed from competition. Okay, leaking documents. Okay, last week logo. Yeah. See, this is Carrie Newell. That's the whole thing. Okay. Media ejected at open forum. This is more of what's going on in this fucking podunk little town. Can we talk about Tommy Tuber? Oh, yeah, Tommy Tuberville. It should make you sad, Radio Atlanta, but it should make you sad in the specific, not in the general. I am not going to curse police forces and journalists across the entire fucking nation based on the activities in Marion fucking Kansas. But if we've accidentally found a gap in the protection for journalists, or a gap in which people can use journalism as a way of harassing citizens, and there's a thread in the law that can be looked at that we can all benefit from, then she doesn't die in vain, and this doesn't just become another flap fucking story in the middle of a day somewhere. Does that make sense? See where I'm going? Maybe it's a perspective thing. How's that sound, everybody? I'm checking in. Yeah, Marion has 2,000 residents. Yes, it's very small. Is it judge elected or appointed? Honestly, in that town, probably elected. Doesn't matter. Houseparks agree with you. If someone is driving negligently and they cause a horrible accident, if an old woman, a bystander, witnesses the horror and dies of a heart attack, can the driver be sued for that? No, they cannot. But if she had a heart attack because that car drove into her building and she was upstairs and the shock of it hitting the building caused her to have a heart attack, you could argue a degree of culpability. Does that make sense? You would tack that onto the sentencing recommendation for the reckless endangerment or the drunk driving. That's what I would argue. I would say that if she saw it from a distance, that's one thing. But we're talking about, since if we want to carry this analogy, and I think it's a solid one, if we want to carry the analogy to her, the car crashed into her house. It hit her house. And the shocking noise of all that kind of stuff led to her, having a heart attack. You could say, yes, you could tie that in. Whether you could charge based on it because the person was drunk and they hit a house and they had no reason to believe that if they, they had no control of the vehicle, but they didn't think if they hit a house, they'd kill somebody on the third floor from a heart attack. But you could say, Your Honor, this person's wanton, reckless behavior and depraved indifference for their fellow man led them to crash into a house and she died, and that's got to be part of this because this person's got to learn. People got to know not to drive drunk, and we got to make an example of this person, so tack on 5 years. That kind of thing. I'm for that. That would make sense to me. And it directly affects her environment, right? Just like the warrant did. The warrant was an entry of her house. She didn't have a heart attack because they entered the office. She had a heart attack because they came in her house, and she panicked from that, in theory, if it's related. I mean, she is 98 years old. Yeah, if my mom was 98, I'd worry if it was 4th of July. Exactly. The point is that there are two competing interests here that will always be competing. Okay? There's no slam dunk in this situation. Okay? There's a situation where free speech and the ability to tell the truth as a sacrosanct activity is the activity of a certain group of people. Journalists, news organizations, media outlets. Law enforcement has got to be there to keep people from dying and things being stolen and all that other stuff. Now, law enforcement cannot use the ability that it has a gun and to lock people up. It has two enforcement activities it can use, and I guess it can put you down. Kill you, lock you up, and threaten you with violence to make you comply, right? Those are the three activities that they can engage in. And journalism can expose information. That would be the primary, when you boil it down to the nut of the whole thing. The exposing of that information by a newspaper needs to be available for the free exchange of ideas, and so that everybody in the public has information, has access to all the information germane to their life, whether hidden or not, if they have, if it comes naturally to the paper. The paper cannot seek out this information by breaking into someone's house any more than a cop can bust into your place without a warrant or probable cause. That's the theory. Okay. Because again, if you didn't have that, then basically newspapers who are controlled by, the local press, the local authorities, could just hire cat burglars to sneak into your house, pick and choose shit, and, and then post it and wreck your life. Right? I mean, just a good example. Marjorie Taylor Greene's showing nude pictures of Hunter Biden in a fucking congressional hearing. Because effectively they used theft as a way of getting that stuff. Or the Post. Any newspaper posting pictures from a stolen hard drive, effectively. Right? Chief of police was fired? Good. But Hunter was driving a hot tub naked, right, while smoking, hanging his dong out the window, and he got away with it all. I know. When are they going to come after him? What about the house that exploded and said it was gas? It sounds like somebody dicking around with. So, better go. Again, Anastasia, I totally agree. I'm not concerned with the sort of emotional backstory of this, because I think it's small town bullshit, and they just thought they could do this, and they had a local judge, and they can't. And the reaction from the world and from you and I is no. In a jump ball, we go with the journalists in this particular situation. And if they can prove in court that they had reason to believe that they were directing people to take information from the police records so that they might use them later, or have them with the threat of using them later, which is, again, this is much more small-sized journalism than it is big stuff. Although, look at the catch and kill idea. It's like an inversion of that with the Inquirer that Trump worked out with David Pecker, right? So, what I'm trying to say is that in these competing interests, this group has to make sure the law isn't broken so that you and I can operate our own lives and actually get on with it. And this group needs to make sure we're well informed so that when we get on with it, we're not driving off a cliff or eating poison food or somebody's cheating us or whatever. And sometimes these people have to look at these people, and sometimes these people have to look at these people. Okay? That's always going to happen. That's never going to go away. Right? We agree on that? That tug and pull in a free society is never going to cease to exist. We'll wait for the chat to catch up. Are we good? How is corruption just part of the human condition? No. There will always be the corrupt among us, but that's different. No. So, there you go. Okay, so let's see. I'm just waiting for the chat to catch up with where I'm talking. All right. So, in those competing interests that exist, there will always be a back and forth. And our job, our thoughts, our responsibility, genuinely, our actual responsibility in this situation is, as an electorate, to A, put the best people in charge of the jump balls that we possibly can. And that means judges. Get as few of the kind of judges who would allow this kind of shit, that kind of a warrant, willy-nilly. They should be rejected outright. Everybody in the middle should, be of the highest quality you can possibly find, and no extremists. That's why you want mid-level jurists and people who will judge it by the merits and dispassionately, right? Justice is blind. That's what you want. And so when you're voting, that's how you need to focus. You need to in those specific situations, especially with judges, you need people who are dispassionate and just want the law followed. And then you need people in office who will write the laws that we're talking about in regard to this as evenly as possible and with the depth of thought required for the importance of the issue. And when it comes to law enforcement and First Amendment, it's pretty fucking deep. Binary disorder. Incapable of understanding that everything isn't black or white. How explaining the police chief isn't liable for the lady's death does not mean he's condoning what happened. Exactly. Thank you, PHK. AI judges. We're not far off that. There will be a point where you can offer, you'll go, we'll take what the AI says because it knows the law entirely. And there will be a limited time to argue with it. And that'll be that, maybe. But the point is, we elect the people who create the laws, who craft the laws. And the languaging in the laws is the area where your representative has the most worth. Because by leaving shit out, or adding stuff in, or crafting the language in such a way that it is hard to violate, or easy to violate, which is a lot of the Republican tax law, for example, you create a situation where the chief of fucking Marion, Kansas, can think he's got wiggle room to do this because the law isn't really clear in their area. Does that make sense? That's why voting matters. I'm always going to boil it back down to that. This is what I'm telling you. You want conscientious, thoughtful people who actually give a fuck. And you never let go of the reins. This is why choose less evil. This is why you always, in a situation where you have two legit choices, choose less evil. Always, every time. And no like teenage sarcasm version of that standard, the actual standard. Because again, dispassionate jurists carrying out warrants and search warrants or setting up grand juries or going after people. You want those people to view the law as it's written. You want the people writing the laws to write it as in line with the Constitution as you can and in line with the greater spirit of those values. And you want them to do it in a competent way so that every fucking parasite that wants to wiggle their way in through every hole in the law as it wanders through the swamp, as it were, of human nature, doesn't wiggle its way in and lay eggs in the colon. This is as gross as I can make it. Local elections too, absolutely. You might be amazed what goes on in small towns. They can be as corrupt in their own way as any place else. I would say more so because they get less scrutiny. So there. Does that make sense? Because again, you can Monday morning quarterback some element of people, I guess, in a particular news story. But I always, the best analogy I can think of for situations like this is relationship articles in People magazine and OK magazine at the grocery store. When people look at those things and they start judging relationships of people, they have no idea what the fuck is going on. They're just like, I can't believe she's cheating on him, he's cheating on her. Why aren't they getting together? Why don't they have a kid? Why are they getting divorced? What's their prenup about? Like, you don't fucking know. You couldn't possibly write enough detail in an article, especially in a magazine, much less a goddamn book, to explain fully what's going on between those two people. The only value it will ever have is that you look at it and you go, okay, did he cheat on her? Is that what the general gist is? Well, I wouldn't do that. Or if I cheat, I'm going to be better at it. Whatever your reaction is. Whatever you take away from it is about you. How does it affect your life? And if it doesn't, the only value of that interaction with you glancing at that shit is a waste of time. But if you could categorically say, man, I keep seeing all these articles about these people doing, maybe no-fault divorce is a bad thing. Maybe that's what you take away from it, right? And then that affects how you vote, or what judges you support, or the policies, or you think that marriage should be legal or some shit like that. And you look at these relationships and then you're like, we need better laws for people who cohabitate than just, if you've been together long enough, it's community property or shit like that, right? You could believe that. That's something you could take away from that, right? They've been together 12 years and they're going separate ways and blah, 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 right? You could take something away from that. And then that would affect how you vote, or how you would want somebody to vote. Or you might even write something up to your congressperson and go, we need to fix this. And they might agree. And there might be a bunch of people who finally see that. And then that has an impact, as opposed to just going, oh, that's a shame, he's an asshole. Other than that, I have no opinion. I'm sorry. I am and shall ever be pro-competency. I am also anti-knee-jerk. Just saying. Does anybody ever? Well, I'll check it. You're pro-jerk? Easy. OMG, Florida? Well, yeah. Death, Satan sucks. Florida elected a dictator. Would be, but our system doesn't allow for it. I mean, he's trying a bunch of shit, and most of it's failing, and even the stuff that isn't is creating the Streisand effect. Further north you go and further south you are. It's true. Never been mistreated by the police. I've always treated them with respect, even when they didn't when they didn't do what when you didn't do what you wanted from them. Yeah. I've been handcuffed naked with deliver spray in my ass. Trying to think what autofill would have covered deliver. And by the way, I'm not here to yuck your yum, James. That's you do you, boo. Agreed. Well, again, easy on that, Helly. I would argue that I think the dead giveaway, no pun intended, is look at news stories about the criminals you hear about, and record versus no record. And the graduation process of criminals. And I don't mean like the school to prison pipeline concept that people have been talking about, which, I mean, effectively declares a certain group of people in our country as animals. I find that racist and horrible. And especially having grown up around a shit ton of hicks who, they're literally, I'm not kidding. My dad used to make a joke when I was a kid about, when Hal grows up and goes off to prison, that was a running. Thanks so much, Tobias. Thanks for helping us think through that. That's very sweet. Yeah, you were school to prison, right? That was a running gag in our town and amongst my dad's friends and around me when I was, especially in my early teens when you're in a bit of trouble. But that, there's a commonality, and by the way, you can always get off that train. You can. If you're a human being and you have most of your faculties, even there's so many diversions in the path. Trump's catching a RICO charge in Georgia. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's what I think too. But we'll see when it actually comes down. Again, I'm just hanging in there. I want to see the paperwork. You know me. You need to get yucked. Well, it's about time, right? I agree. The best chat ever. When was the last time you lived and worked in a small town? Well, I mean, how small are we talking? Obviously, because I would argue Winnebago's on the North Shore of Chicago, but it's pretty small. But I've definitely lived in urban areas since I left Kentucky. But I go back to Kentucky all the time, and I have family all over the place, so we go see them. And it's not there. Certainly, a lot of stuff has changed, but most of it is in terms of there's money there now where there was not. The area I stayed in near Tallahassee while I was doing the Shakespeare play, there was a bunch. I drove through an area that was all trailer parks on my way to the rehearsals, which we did in this swampy warehouse out in the middle of nowhere. And I was there for a good month. And again, it wasn't that different from how I'd grown up as far as who I saw and who I was around, and hasn't changed all that much. If anything, it's changed for the better because the roads have gotten better. The, communication's better. 12,000 people in the middle of the third largest metro area, small town, pleasure. No, it isn't. I'm just saying, as far as a place where I lived in particular, and we didn't train down there. I was in high school. And it was after living in a town with 46 people in it. And, walking everywhere I went, including to elementary school. Aw. Thanks, Carlin. I hope you enjoy it. So, is there a holler? Yeah. Federal money. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially throughout Kentucky. Is Dennis DeYoung a good guy? Yes, he is. He's definitely got a strong personality. And I'm sure, people will, some people will be put off by it. But I find him lovely. But I like big personalities. And I also don't automatically, that's why it pisses me off that people think Trump is a narcissist, because he's actually got low self-esteem. He's an idiot. And he's scared of his own shadow. And somebody like myself who has an enormous ego hates it when my character traits are attributed to an awful person like him. Cameras will be allowed in the Georgia trial. Oh, that's sweet. Well, they were asking for it because it's a state trial too, right? Did I play any sports in high school? Short time in soccer, but that was it. And then I got into stand-up. So I was already working. I've been in SAG since I was 17 years old. And I would have been at 16, but I literally was Taft-Hartley'd before my 17th birthday. So when I was 16, and then I joined the union after, as soon as I could. Basically, all the money from my first job went to joining the union. Yep. Every dime. And I had to, and at the same time, I also had to pay somebody for my name, because there was a Hale Sparks, Hale, and I had to pay him to relinquish it because he had retired. Yep. Let's see. We're already out of time. That's what happens when these I agree it was a smart investment. I think it was terrific. It was definitely, when you're 17 years old, it's a bit of a bummer because you make some real coin for the first time in your life and it's all gone. But the goal was to have a career, not just a job. So that was that. All hail Al. Damn, can you sing us out? No, but I seriously had to pay to use your own. Yeah. I want to go hail Sparks. Yeah. He exists somewhere. HALE, yeah. You can't have low self-esteem and still be narcissistic. You can have narcissistic personality disorder and have low self-esteem. You're not technically narcissistic. Narcissistic is not a diagnosis. It's a character trait. Narcissistic personality disorder is, and and that's the big debate. Is it actually, low self-esteem? The problem is, if you say it's low self-esteem, there's almost an element of pity that people have who are narcissists, and then people would rather hate them for being assholes because nobody likes them. So they call it narcissistic personality disorder instead of, I don't know, delusions of loser, that kind of thing. 5 hours left until Everspace 2 on PS5. Ooh, but look out. Narcissism is part of what keeps you alive, forces you to eat, feed yourself first, make money, whatever. Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's narcissism. Being self-centered to some degree is necessary for life. That's why you got to put your mask on before you put it on your kid, because if you die, they don't live. But so you have to live so they can make it. That makes sense. Especially when you have to tell people to do that on an airplane, because these things are hanging up like this, and an adult can reach it because it's right there, but a kid cannot. And if they're alone in the aisle next to a passed out adult, dead kid. So, we're having quite a thunderstorm. Well, be careful out there. Hell's not an arc. It's true. We went deep. We did go deep today. But I also think it's, I understand that stories like we dealt with today, around that raid at that person's house and the local, like that is a great example of, if I may, just for a moment, a great example of the weaponization of your empathy, your decent characteristics, your impulse to do and be good can get used against you through, an outrage machine. We see it with clickbait all the time. But it can also, if you're not careful, make you act in such a way that you act against your own best interests. And we see this with voters. We see this with, the maggot world is full of them. And the goal is not to become like that. And it puts you in the uncomfortable space of confronting the reality that you are, whether you like it or not, disassociated and dispassionate about elements of life because of the sheer depth of your experience of it. Hearing a story about even a celebrity death, for example, is not something that connects to you as much as it connects to the family and friends who were there when it happened, or found them, or said goodbye, or dealt with their illness, or any of that stuff. And you couldn't possibly be, and it's okay. You're not supposed to. You couldn't. It would be so overwhelming to be that level of empathetic or to have that much experience all the time. And if you are even close to it, more than likely you're a cop or a doctor or a medical examiner or one of the cast members of Law and Order SVU. To deal with that much, pain and misery and all that kind of stuff, it exists out there. But if that was your isolated view of the world, it would be devastating. So it's okay to recognize that your empathy and your understanding of a circumstance can only go so far. And you can feel what you feel, but if you recognize in yourself that you might be over-feeling about a situation, it could be that it just resonates with something and that's fine. But it could also be that the version of the story that you're reading is making you drift in one direction or another in terms of how the person writing the story or the advocate in the story, or the particular choice of people that are responding to the story or whatever around you, that it's toned to them. And if you and it's all you have to do is check. All you have to do is just check in with that and go, is this really how I feel, or is that because of this, because of how they're saying it? And you may be totally within the normal, your normal understanding of a circumstance, an issue, or whatever, to go, nope, no, I believe that I feel like I'm getting a good view of what's there, and the judgment I'm coming from is not about that circumstance, which again I don't know all the details about. It's about my concern about the rules, regulations, laws, policies, ideas around me, either in politics, in business, in economics, or in my own life. And therefore, I will learn from this circumstance what I choose to learn because I focus on it that way, because that's the only element of this that concerns me. And if I can do anything about it to make sure it doesn't happen again, that one concerning aspect of it, or those two concerning, or the entire situation itself, I will do that. That's my goal for you and for this show and for being here at all, is that your reaction to these things becomes more functional, useful, and that you don't have somebody just putting an emotional bit in your mouth and riding you around, unless, again, that's your idea of a good time. And if it is, I'll see you later this afternoon, regular time. Yeah? Okay. I don't know. Just seems like something worth doing. Don't forget to hit like on your way out the door. Subscribe.